being a business owner, being a father, and being obviously the chef, it's a challenge every day, which excites me, a lot, because that's what keeps me going. So, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
This is The Crackling. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Cooking over fire has been a real feature of the restaurant landscape in the last 5 to 10 years down under. It's where instinct comes to the fore, but what is it like in a restaurant setting relying on the most pure heat sources? For Jake Kellie, the lure of the embers and the open flame has resulted in one of the most exciting restaurants to open in Adelaide in recent history. Jake, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you, Huck?
I'm good. You opened Arkhé. Oh, it doesn't feel that long ago. It might feel like a bit for you.
Oh, big time, mate. A couple of extra grey hairs in there, that's for sure. No, it's been good, man. We're probably into, what are we now, 15 months now of Arché's been open. So, ticking along nicely. And busy, which is the main thing. So it's good.
Well, we caught up with you on our sibling podcast, Deep in the Weeds, before you opened. I can't believe it was that long ago that so much has happened since then. What's it been like becoming part of the Adelaide hospitality scene, given you a vast experience all over the globe?
Look, mate, it's been really great, to be honest. Such an amazing group of restaurants down here already, and very, very humbled to be a part of it now with Arkhé. It's great. I think there's a great big energy around Adelaide at the moment and the dining scene. And, I think in probably the next few months, to 12 to 24 months, I think Adelaide will give, Sydney and Melbourne a good red hot crack.
Australia is culturally renowned for their backyard barbecues, but cooking over fire in the restaurant sense is so far removed from burning eyebrows and charring sausages. Tell us a little bit about cooking over fire and the approach, because it's not necessarily about licking flames.
No, definitely not. So, like at Arkhé, we obviously have our 2.5 ton sort of dual cavity wood oven. So that's sort of like our furnace that creates our coals. So I think it's one thing to lighting a fire on, say, like a grill, but having an oven to be able to produce coals and replenish your grills every 15 to 20 minutes is a bit of an art. So with our ovens, they sort of get up to about 700-800 degrees most services. So it's generally that person that's working on the ovens is generally can wear the heat pretty well, but no, I think it's definitely something new that's definitely come to Adelaide in the sense of like how we cook. Obviously, we've got a couple of elevation grills and a big open hearth as well. So we don't have any electricity or gas per se in our cooking line. So we're cooking for, what are we doing for Saturday night? We did about 130 on Saturday night. So it's a beast. Every now and then I do look out into the dining room. I look at our staff and go, "Oh, bloody hell, what have I created?" But I think that's just makes us a little bit more unique in Adelaide. So it's exciting.
There's lots of things that can go wrong in a kitchen during service, and that reliance on electricity and gas and things like that, it's sort of thrown out the door a little bit with what you do. What's some of the challenges that you face with cooking over sort of that natural heat source like that?
Look, I always want to have like a little induction set up for service, that's for sure, just to like whip up something or a sauce. If something splits, like we do a beurre blanc sauce, if like splits, then you generally have to like go out the back and make it again. So there are small little challenges. We obviously have a deep fryer. We have like a little cauldron, and that's over coals. So obviously keeping the coals under that so the oil stays hot. So when we fry our hash browns that are in smoked beef fat, that like it doesn't drop too low because they won't go crispy and they'll go soggy. So there's all these little small things, but generally the way spending time at burn ends and that, I've sort of come to immune to. It naturally comes to me on how I want to cook and what I know how to cook over fire. So that's sort of natural instincts, I suppose.
Are you a vastly different cook, sort of pre-experience with cooking over embers to post? Do you approach produce and the techniques differently?
Oh, big time. Yeah, like even at home now, I don't reckon I can cook anything in a pan. Like I'm out the back of my house now. I'm looking at my Weber. and a big crate of wood. So it yeah, like from restaurants I come back, like when I started off my apprenticeship, like working at Aria and Ramsey and the Ledbury, where things were always done in a pan, and you roast in the pan, you look good knob of butter, thyme, garlic, nappe. Like I haven't done that for years now. So when I just come to just grilling over fire. So yeah, I think my style has changed quite a lot.
Well, I want to explore this foray that you've had into cooking over fire, and particularly the cooking of pork over fire as well. But you just mentioned a few of the restaurants. You've worked at such amazing venues. Take us back to when you were young. What were the really important sort of venues for you as you sort of earned your stripes?
Look, I think Aria was probably a good stead for me. I did obviously my apprenticeship up on the central coast of New South Wales, at a small restaurant in Wyong called the Little Frog. So I started my apprenticeship there, but obviously moving into, a high end, restaurant with Matt being there and Ben Turner and Simon Sandel, who were the head chefs there at the time. I learnt the proper way very quickly. So, I spent a few years there, and back then, like when I was coming for apprentices, like being an apprenticeship, sorry, in restaurants, you did your diligence by staying there for 2 or 3 or 4 years, to earn your stripes. And I kind of did that for a few years, and then moved to Melbourne and opened up when Gordon had the restaurant Maze down there. So yeah, I think it kind of gets lost these days. I was telling a sort of a bit of a story the other day when I used to work at Aria, and I saw all the sous chefs walking around in Aria aprons, or I went to the Ledbury and there was guys walking around in Ledbury aprons. If you spent 2 years longer, if you spent 2 years in the kitchen, then that was a sign to say, like, I've done my time. And I remember I used to work in kitchens like that, and I used to see those jackets, and I was like, I really want one of those. So I'm going to make sure I stay here for 2-3 years so I can get it. So, but yeah, I think just grafting on in kitchens is sort of what I learned pretty hard, pretty early.
Produce is at the backbone of some of the restaurants that you mentioned early on. Do you have any sort of memories of your first experiences of cooking pork in a commercial kitchen, like with Aria and Maze?
Yeah, look, I think it was obviously like when I was an apprentice, it just jolted my memory. Then, Huck, we did this, we did a beautiful entree dish where back in the 2000s, like it was like this maple glaze on the plate, on a square plate, a white square plate at Aria. And like a maple glaze and a curabuta pork, confit in the oven, crisped up in the pan, with a little like poached pear and done in hibiscus syrup and some endive. So like, that was a very fond memory of pork for me. And obviously when I used to do the hot larder, when you cook, back then Aria doing 300-400 covers on on a Saturday's night service, you're grilling those off or crisping those up before service. Generally about 30 or 40 portions of it, because it used to fly out the door. So, but yeah, probably fond memories like when I worked at a restaurant in Melbourne called The Commoner in Fitzroy. That sort of, Matt and Joe really had a good emphasis behind pork, and I think that's where I sort of started to really love cooking it, and used to just do it all the time. So we had an amazing wood oven out the back, so sort of a bit spoiled in that sense of cooking delicious pork.
You mentioned the Ledbury. It seems like a bit of a rite of passage for so many great Australian chefs to do some time over there with Brent Graham. Take us to your experience. What was it like for you in that kitchen?
Oof, it was pretty hard. I was there. I was just turned 19, so I was pretty young. I went over there probably a bit too young for an English kitchen. The Ledbury just got its second star, so Brett was just on a mission, and so was everyone else in that kitchen. But the produce and everything that we used to get through the doors there was just so amazing. And I think still to this day, I think the way Brett looked at produce and looked at cooking and looked at food in general was definitely something that I admired at a very young age. And when I left the Ledbury, it was just like, I want to be like Brett. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, like he had definitely a massive impact on me in the short period of time that I was there.
The produce over in the UK is very different to Australia. Do you have any stories of what it was like in the Ledbury? Did Brett utilise pork or parts of the pork in certain dishes that you can recall?
Oh, big time, yeah. Like we used to on our set menu, we used to run pork on two courses. So it was like, we do like a little braised shoulder as like the first course, and then we went into like pork jowl. So we used to get pretty good whole sides of pork in. We'd break them all down, and the loins would be maybe used on du jour menu for lunch the next day with like preserved apricots and chanterelles, or we'd braise the shoulder down like I said, and yeah. So I think and that's like Brett's kind of style as well. He made sure he utilised the whole thing, so the whole animal in every aspect. So no, it was good. It was good to learn that.
You spent some time working with Heston Blumenthal as well. What was that like?
Yeah, it was good. It was definitely a bit of an eye opener. Coming from maize and the area and stuff like that, and learning a different style of cooking. Doing a stage out there for about 2 months. I was out there for was amazing, and definitely like it was cool to see that kind of style. Following that, I went in to start working at the Lebury. So yeah, like it was unreal, and a good bunch of boys out there. A little bit further out of London, so it was a little bit harder if you wanted to have a day trip. It was always a bit of a mission to get back into town, but yeah, look, it was a great learning curve, I'd say. And yeah, look, one of my good mates is the head chef there now, so we still keep in contact, which is great.
It's amazing to hear you say that you wanted to be like Brett Graham after that experience with the Ledbury. Tell us about your time when you came back to Australia and you started to sort of make a name for yourself at various venues. What was the sort of real key moments for you?
I'd say the key moment would have been probably taking on my first head chef role at 23. That was when I get to cook my own food and start doing that. So yeah, that was at the Commoner. So Joe and Matt gave me an opportunity to take over the kitchen, and obviously they'd had it for about 6 or 7 years when I jumped on board. So they had they understood the business, and like the whole business side of aspect was an amazing thing to learn through them as well. Going to the markets early in the morning and make sure we're trying to cut costs as much as we could in the sense of produce, and like just going that extra, those extra 1%ers, 2%ers to go out of your way to try and, help the business in every way, as it was a pretty small restaurant. Was a good thing to learn. But yeah, like I think it was an unreal time for me, and just having a few years there as head chef under my belt and moving on working with Scott was great as well. So yeah.
Scott Pickett is a renowned chef and made a huge impact on Melbourne's culinary landscape and continues to. Take us back to Estelle. Was his kitchen a little bit different to what you'd experienced?
Yeah, big time. I think Scott still had that old English mentality in kitchens when I first started working for him, where he'd scream at everyone every 10 seconds, and he probably still does that to this day. But yeah, no, it was unreal. Having Josh Pelham there and Aaron Brody and like good sort of guys that had come from like the Square. And Aaron was at Maze in London with Jason Atherton. So, still having that really good experience of chefs around you. Like we had, like it would have been probably hands down one of the best kitchen teams in Melbourne at the time. So, yeah, I love working for Scott, and super excited he's actually going to come over to Adelaide in May and do a dinner with us at Arkhé. So, yeah, that'll be good. And Scott's always been a massive mentor for me, and anything. So I have questions about the business or anything like that. So we still have a very good relationship as well. So which is awesome.
Do you have any sort of stories of that influence and how he's influenced you? What sort of impact has he had on you?
He did it very cheekily. So when I moved from the Commoner, and I worked at Estelle, and I won Australian Young Chef of the Year, which was awesome. And during that period, I think Scott had been through the same as what I was going through at that point in time. So he kind of knew the direction I was on and the opportunities that would come. And he let me, Scott would go, okay, you can go represent Estelle. And I went and cooked down at Duck Mofo in Tasmania. So he let me do the most amazing things. He just let me push myself, and as long as I backed it up at work, he was like, mate, you can do whatever you want. Just be transparent with me, and just flag the Estelle brand hard as much as you can. And I was like, unreal. So he was very supportive in that way, and and obviously winning Australian Young Chef, like he was there when I won it. So yeah, it was an amazing time working for him. He's just been a massive mentor for me, so it's good.
Take us to Singapore. Was that the sort of real big turning point for you in regards to cooking over fire?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, big time. So it was, yeah, 3 years with Dave. Was yeah, I still look back on those 3 years and just still pinch myself on, yeah, like what we did and what came through, like the opportunities that came our way, and yeah, it was unreal. It was a really good turning point for me, and obviously working with an amazing team that he has up there with, front of house with TK and Yvette and Deborah and who are my sous chefs. Like, yeah, they really taught me the proper way of cooking over fire.
Well, you were part of the team that really solidified its presence in the world's best lists and Michelin star, and its impact has been incredible. To take us into that kitchen and the approach and what you started to learn there, particularly cooking over pork.
Yeah, there was yeah, that's the thing with Dave. There was no real off button with old Pinto, and I don't think there still is. So he's just that was something that I really learned from him. That you always keep the ball rolling on every aspect in a restaurant, and always keep pushing the brand and everything like that. So it was amazing working with him in that sense. And even that went down to he started his own sort of freight business. So we actually started bringing up fresh pork from Western Plains. So it was pretty unreal. Like we'd get four sides, so two whole pigs, four sides. We'd get them once a month. We'd break it all down. Shoulders would go into our sanger, used for our sanger meat. Um, the bellies we'd turn into belly chop. The loins and the chops we'd put on the menu. Short loin would go on the menu. And then we'd probably send the legs to Meatsmith, and they'd like do a hand brine on that, and then put it through the smoker at Meatsmith. So yeah, it was a bloody operation, that's for sure. And once to get four sides, it'd take us, me and Alistair probably, good 3 hours to break it all down, box it up, get it sent off to Meatsmith or put it upstairs in the cool room. So, but that was good for me because I still got to learn about, I'm still breaking down whole animals, like, and the pork that Judy used to send up to us was amazing as well. It was always the creme. So no, it was amazing. So it was good pork dishes on the menu all the time, and obviously being from Australia and being in Singapore, it was a good match.
You spent quite a few years there. What did you take from your time when you came back to Australia from those experiences you had at Burnt Ends?
I think probably the biggest one is don't slow down. Just keep pushing, and obviously I'd like to. Dave's a pretty good mentor in that sense as well. Like Scott, he's there's things that he wants out of a business, and it was good to see that. And I sort of taken a few of those attributes, and also a big thing of how he built culture around a restaurant. I think that's something that me and Greta, my VM, had countless chats before we opened, and we were just like, the biggest thing that we want to create for this restaurant is a great culture. We want staff to be able to come to work, and that's what it was like at Burnt Ends. We all walked in the door every day. We knew we were working in an amazing restaurant, but we all had each other's back. If someone was down on prep or front of house was struggling, we'd all jump in and make sure that that person was okay. And that was an aura Dave had. Well, like, it was incredible. Like, he'd walk in the restaurant and everyone would just be like, boom. Like, it was just it's an amazing attribute that he has, and that's something that I really took out from that. That whenever I did open my own restaurant, I want my team to have that as well. So that was definitely one of the biggest things I learned from him.
Well, let's talk about your own restaurant. How did Arkhé begin?
Oh, mate, that happens. I moved to Adelaide, and I was doing a bit of a pop up down at Pirate Life, a brewery here down in Port Adelaide. And Jack and MC, they got me a food truck, built me this amazing grill pit, and I did Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays out of a food truck, and everything was cooked over fire over the summer period 2 years ago. And my business partner, Marty Palmer, came down. He was looking at a hotel or a boutique hotel down in Port, and he came with his business partner, Ed Peters. And I used to feed Ed quite a lot up in Singapore because he used to have Straits wine. And and it sort of Ed just said to Marty, he's like, you need to hire this guy. Anyway, one thing led to another. We had a bit of a chat, and Marty said, do you want to come have a look at a venue? And I was like, yeah, no, let's do it. And I was a bit optimistic because Marty's got, he's got some amazing pubs around Adelaide. So I was like, oh, I don't really want to do a pub. But then we walked into it used to be called Stone's Throw. Um, my first reaction was it was pretty big. Arkhé is a bit of a beast. It's a big site. But obviously spending a little bit of time at Mimi's with, Justin and Jordan Toft, and the way Mimi's used to run as well, I was like, having that experience coming back from Singapore and seeing that, I was like, and that Maryvale vibe, I kind of like, okay, well, I reckon I know what I could do here. And then when you've wanted something for so long, I kind of just, when I saw the kitchen and where it was situated in the building, I was like, I just started rattling. I just, all the partners and shareholders were there, and I just started rattling it off, and they just all looked at me and goes, "All right, we need to have a beer." So, and then that was it. And one thing led to another. We opened on Arkhé on the 24th of November, 2021.
Wow. What was it like building your own restaurant from scratch? Were there unexpected challenges?
Oh, big time, especially when you have a baby like 7 weeks before you open. That was probably the biggest challenge. So yeah, that was hectic, but I really learned a lot from the building process, which was great because as this was the first sort of this is the only one I've ever done. So especially from the ground up. But Marty was amazing to work alongside with as a business owner and as my partner, and obviously Studiogram doing the fit out. We've won amazing awards for our design and all that kind of stuff. So it's been great, but I think the hardest bit was obviously having my son and then turning around to my partner the next morning and going, I got to go. Um, I was in the doghouse for a couple of days after that, Huck. So, but no, it's all paying off now. So it's just great.
Let's talk about the cooking over fire and pork and how that weaves through the menu. Is there a couple of dishes you can tell us about where pork is front and center?
Yeah, big time. Look, maybe we have a great pork producer here in Adelaide, South Australia, I should say. It's the Dairyman. So, Michael, his daughter actually is Greta, who's my VM. So, there's a good little relationship there. And we get all our pork from him. So we take the middle cut, so all the bellies, the short loins, and the chops, because it's very, I would say it's a small producer, the Dairyman. So he's got Berkshire, he's got Tamworth, and he's got Hampshire breeds out at the farm in Barossa. They're all fed on milk, barley. So yeah, it's amazing product, and we're literally the only restaurant in South Australia that gets the middle cut. So yeah, it's really unique because I know everyone's sort of asking like, Michael, can we get the chops? Can we get the bellies? Can we get your short loins? And we actually take it all at Arkhé. So and we go through it as well, which is great. So we just we use the short loin, slow roast it in our cold oven, and then we'll use that on one of our tasting menus, and our pork belly as well. And we also just started doing pork short loin chops, like rubbed in adobo, with spice, which is great, cooked over the fire. And then we obviously do the chops, whole racks on big nights, or we break them down and weigh them and tag them and serve them by the kilo.
Tell us about cooking the whole rack of pork over fire. Take us through the process and how you get it right.
Yeah, we give it a good sort of temper. Pull it out, say probably about 2 or 3 o'clock if we're going for a 6 o'clock service, so it gets a nice good temper. And with our ovens at work, Huck, we got two sides. We got a hot side and we've got a cold side. Anyway, the cold side sits at about, when it hits probably Friday, Saturday, it sits about 160, 170. And what we do, we go in and out of the cold oven. So we'll go in for, say, 10 minutes, out, and then we rotate the pork. Then we go back in. And we probably do that about, probably 10 to 15 times, rotating it all the time. And then once we bring the pork to about, say, 44, that skin's sort of generally like nice and dry. And we score it beforehand and like lightly salt it. And then when we've got the hot oven just like raging at like, nice big hot coals and fire, we then put that skin and that whole rack in front of the hot oven, and the skin just crackles up. So we generally bring our pork to about 49, 50. And yeah, man, we take the chine bone off before all that and just cut it into chops. So again, like we're just trying to like, you know, obviously, when we do it in the cold oven, we're always chucking a smoking log in there as well. But it's, still that emphasis of making sure that we're still cooking, and the integrity of the restaurant is making sure that we're still cooking everything over the fire or around smoke, or, we're utilizing, radiant heat for our cold oven.
The beautiful thing about the menu that you have as well is the versatility of the produce and the unexpected ways they're working together. And one of the things that really stood out for me was the roast pork on toast that you had. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, big time. So we like, obviously, if we're doing, if it's Friday or Thursday night and we cook a whole belly or we cook a whole short loin or something like that, we might not sell it all. Then what we do, obviously, we do like a cold cut on toast. So we like chill it down and we put on the slicer the next day. Nice little slices, grilled bit of sourdough, brushed in brown butter, mustard dressing. Then we just warm up that pork back up. And then we in the cold oven or in front of the hot oven, just with a bit of pork jus, and then we wrap that, put that on top of the toast with a little tartare salad. So you got shallots, capers, chopped rocket, dressed a little bit of sherry vinegar, olive oil, salt and pepper. We dress that over the top of the pork. It's just obviously utilising. So it's utilising. I wouldn't say it's waste, but if we don't use all that pork the night before, it's either in your general aspect you're either going to think, oh, okay, well it's either going to go to star food, or it might just get left in the corner if someone would. So we just try to utilise, using something cold. It's like having cold ham the next day after you do a roast or something like that. So we just make sure that we're using it up, and it's also pretty tasty.
You've used all sorts of breeds of pigs and some extraordinary products in various sort of restaurants. And here you're using the dairyman at milk feeds, I believe, some of the pigs. What's so special about that pork?
I think it's just the flavour profile. And sort of still like obviously from the milk and that barley, still get quite a bit of fat into the pig as well. So it's like some of the the fat that comes on the pork every week. It's like it's beautiful. Like it's just super nice that the pigs are still getting that good layer of fat, and they're getting fed well. That's something that we look at pretty heavily when the pork does come in, because if it does come in quite lean, I sort of say just flag it to Michael, and it's once in a blue moon. He might that's really all, but yeah, I think the feed's really important, and especially out in the Barossa, it's very hot. It's a lot hotter out there than it is in town. So, but yeah, and obviously the pasture out there. We went out to Michael's farm a couple of months ago, about 3 or 4 months ago, and got to see it properly. So, yeah, mate, he runs an amazing business out there. He's got beautiful mushrooms. He's got great buttermilk, good butter. So yeah, he does the whole works out there. So it's great.
Having such vast experience cooking on all sorts of mediums, what's the benefits or advantage for you cooking over embers and using a natural heat source?
Man, I think it's just the flavour, Huck. You just if a pork, whether nice pork chop, you get good caramelisation. You render that fat down, good crackling. You can't really go wrong, and especially this, we use great wood at Arkhé and using red gum, which is loads of it here in South Australia. So, it gives off a good flavour profile, especially for the pork as well. So, I just think, yeah, just made you can't. For me, like I talk like so naturally, it's like cooking over, that over, the fire. It's a no-brainer for me. Besides, I haven't put anything in a pan for a few years now, but I reckon I'd get probably a different flavour profile. So I think, and that's something that we use on all our dishes. I think the key thing is making sure that everything on the menu is as tasty as it possibly can, because that's what's going to bring the customers back. And if you've got tasty food, that's generally what happens.
Well, Arkhé is a real amazing success story, especially emerging out of the last couple of years, which has been challenging for everyone on the planet, and particularly hospitality. What do you love about what you do?
Oh, mate, it's. I think what I love about what I do is a challenge every day. If it was easy, you wouldn't worry about it too much. But having being a business owner, being a father, and being obviously the chef, it's a challenge every day, which it excites me, a lot, because that's what keeps me going. So, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So, but no, I think that's something I really enjoy. That's a challenge, and I've got amazing staff and amazing people around me to support me on the journey that Arké's on. So, and there's some really exciting things happening in the next few months, and I think everyone's really jumping behind it. So it's great.
Well, it's an absolute honour to catch up with you again, Jake, and it's great to hear of the success and what may come as well in the future. Please stay in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, big time, man. Sounds good.
This is The Crackling, a Deep in the Weeds production in partnership with PorkStar. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we catch up with some of Australia's best chefs and pork producers to discover what makes Australian pork so special.